Somebody.
Good morning, Marvin.
Good morning, Harvey.
Okay. Everyone's here, but
Everyone teach.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning, Ken.
morning.
Good morning.
We'll go through our sponsors and then get to the Gemara for this morning. Okay. Year of Learning, Dr. Paul Koningsberg, in memory of his brother, Dr. Sam Koningsberg, Shimon Ruvain ben Labish, and Ed Goldberg's cousin, Nissen Hara Nissen ben Fardosa, Paul and Bob Bromberg, in memory of their dear friend Julian Smith, Yehuda ben Yisrael, Malcolm Mann, in memory of her family murdered in the Holocaust, Rav Tzvi Hirsch ben Shlomo Yaakov, Sarah bat Ephraim, Yisrael David ben Arav Tzvi Hirsch, Ephraim ben Arav Tzvi Hirsch, Adia bas Arav Tzvi Hirsch, Miriam bas Arav Tzvi Hirsch, Pesel bas Arav Tzvi Hirsch, Shalom ben Arav Tzvi Hirsch, Shlomo Yaakov ben Arav Tzvi Hirsch, Shmuel ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch. Many friends of Dr. Marvin Blush, Moshe Shalom ben Yitzchak Halevi, friends of Toby Paris, Sarah Tova bat Yisrael, Yisrael Dov, friends of Malka Levi, Malka bat Yosef, friends of Avi Gitla, Avram Meir ben Shimon, Cheryl Sher, her children and grandchildren, and that's going to be in memory of her uncle, founding member of BRS, Dr. Israel Brook, Yisrael ben Arav Akiva, Marcia Federbush and family, in memory of her husband, Dr. Uriel Paul Federbush, Uriel ben Harav Shimon. Month of Learning by Charlie Gelfenstein, in memory of his mother, Dacia Gilbas Meir Levi, and his father, Meir ben Yaakov. Gila and Harold Saltzman, in memory of her mother, Eti bat Yitzchak Elchanan. Chaim and Phyllis Reese, in memory of his father, Mordechai ben Yom Tov Lipa. Phyllis and Chaim Reese, in memory of her father, Pinchas ben Avraham. A Week of Learning by Lala and Siggy Bessler, in memory of her father, Mordechai ben Yisrael Yitzchak. And that is it for today. May the Neshamas have an aliyah, crank a refiah vet the yeshir, Shema Tliya, and l'chol b'nei Israel a good gaban shtiyah. Okay. I just want to, as we go into the Gemara, we saw that the previous Amudim went into some significant detail in trying to prove that the term or at the beginning of the Mishnah actually meant, not according to the view of Rav Huna, that it was day or daylight or light, but evening. Okay. And so as we began yesterday's daf, we saw continued proofs to support that idea, right? And that's where we, ended yesterday as well, with a long discussion on a side topic of what's Lashon Nikiyah, the proper language or non-coarse, refined language, things like that. As we start the top of Dalet Amud Aleph this morning, we're going to sort of finish up that topic and then ultimately return to our main focus, which is going to be the issue of searching at the evening for the chometz. Okay, so let's go into the Gemara on Dalet Amud Aleph from the top. Rav Bar Achva the Rabbi Chia. Rav, who was the son of Rabbi Chia's brother, okay, Bar Achte, and also the son of Rabbi Chia's sister. Okay. Now, Art Scroll does not give you it has a note on this, okay, but Koren actually gives a family tree to show how they were related. That's regarding a second marriage, okay, one marrying his stepsister. Okay, now, but the Gemara is telling us this whole story ultimately to sensitize us to the issue again of refined language, being careful with language. Okay, Kisalik lahatam, when he left and went there to Eretz Yisrael, Amarle. Okay, so Rabbi Chia said to him, Ivo Kiyem. He asked about Ivo, okay, who was his relative. Okay, is he still alive? Amarle ime kayemet. He asked, his response, is the mother still alive? Okay. Amarle, he said to him, ima kayemet, is your mother still alive? Amarle Ivo kayam. And he said, therefore, is Ivo still alive? In other words, informing him that both of his parents were now deceased. Okay. And so Rabbi Chia, as a result, suddenly learns this information, not directly, but indirectly. Understanding that both of them have passed away, the Gemara continues to tell us, Amarle l'sham'e, Rabbi Chia said to his servant, Chalotz li mina'ale, okay, he tells him to take off his my shoes. In other words, he's going to perform an act of representing that he's carrying out avelut, right? Mourning. V'holech kale acharai lebeit hamerchatz. And then afterwards you'll come and you will carry my garments, okay, to the rinsed bathhouse. Shma mina tlat, says the Gemara. We learn from this incident three things. Shma mina, number one, avel asur b'ni'ilat hasandal, that a mourner is forbidden in terms of wearing shoes. Number two, ushma mina, shmua rechoka, eina noheget el yom echad. Okay, that the distant knowledge of one passing of a family member for whom one would have obligations of mourning only requires I'll call it a 1 day, an abbreviated mourning period. Okay, ushmamina, and the third example, miktzat hayom kekulo, that part of the day for fasting is like the entire day. That, of course, is clearly also a general principle in regards to the laws of Avelis, right? Now, we get another story. Hahu da'amar, there was a certain person who used to say, Donu dine, judge my cases in court. Amre, and the people said, Shma mina midan ka'ate. Okay, that tells us that he was a descendant of the tribe of Dan. Dechtiv, why? Because we have a pasuk that says, Dan yadin amo kechad shiftei Yisrael. Okay, that was the reference to Dan, that tribe in terms of the blessing by Yaakov, right, to the tribe of Dan. Another story, Hahu dahava ka'azil ba'amah. There was a person who would go out and he would say, Akef Yama, by the seashore, Asisne Biriate. Okay, that the bushes, the beautiful bushes, are cypress trees. Right? So the Gemara tells us, Badku, they examined, V'ishkachuhu the Mizvulun Ka'ate. And they found that he was a descendant of the tribe of Zvulun. Tiv Zvulun lechof yamim yishkon. That the Zvulun, again, from the blessing of Yaakov, dwells by the seashores. Okay. Now, having had this long excursus, so to speak, on Lashon Nikiyah, coarse language versus refined language, all of this, we're now ready to get back to our topic of searching for chametz. Okay. Now remember, the first element that we looked at for the Mishnah was linguistic, the meaning of the term or. Okay, now we're going to get a little bit more into the issue of content, right? So the Gemara now continues. Vahashta dekaimalan la dekule alma or ortahu. And now, says the Gemara, that we all understand and hold that everyone is in agreement that the term or actually means evening. We have a different question, a content question, namely, michte. Since that's the case, says the Gemara, bein la Rabbi Yehuda u bein la Rabbi Meir, regardless if it's Rabbi Yehuda or Rabbi Meir, chametz eino asur ela mishe sha'ot u'lamala. Both of them, everybody, or both of them at least agree, that the prohibition of eating chametz does not begin until the start of the 6th hour of the day. Okay? So what happens, asks the Gemara? V'nivdok b'shit. So let us do the examination, the search for the Badika, at the 6th hour. V'chi tema. And if you want to say, Zrizin Magdimin LeMitzvot, that those who are eager to fulfill the mitzvot, to do them early, explain it that way. Nivdok Mitzafra. Let us examine that in the morning. Okay. Dichtiv. Why? Because it's written in the pasuk. Uvayom hashmini yimol basar olato. On the 8th day, one will circumcise the foreskin, right? And so therefore, to show where's rizim in that mitzvah, we do it first thing in the morning. By the way, there is this interesting fact, just as a quick aside, that they're making this association of circumcision with part of the observance of Pesach. Okay? We should all remember that there is a Mishnah in Kritut that tells us that these are the only 2 positive commandments for which if someone does not observe them, they are chayav koret. So there is this long association. Okay, close the, thank you. It's between these 2 mitzvot.
What, I'm sorry, what is the circumcision and what?
And Pesach.
Pesach, chametz.
Pesach, but okay, so in other words, what's the positive mitzvah that you get kores for?
That if you do not, both the observance of eating the paschal lamb, Pesach sacrifice, and the positive commandment to do circumcision, these are the only 2 mitzvot aseh that if you don't do them, the punishment is correct.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you.
So all I'm simply pointing out is that while there's not a direct connection here, the fact that they use this parallel, we should be aware of the fact that there's a long-standing connection there. Okay, so the Gemara picks up now. Vitanya, all right? And we also teach a Braita. Kol hayom kulo kasher lamila, ela shezrizin makdimin lemitzvot. Okay? While the entire day is viable, acceptable, okay, for the performance of circumcision, we know that those who are eager to perform mitzvot, right, do so early. Shana Amar, Vayishkem Avraham Baboker. As it said, and Abraham got up early in the morning. Okay, so we're still left with the question, the content question, why does our Mishnah say that one should perform the Badika the evening before if the prohibition to eat chametz doesn't start till later in the day itself? Amar Rav Nachman, says Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, b'sha'a shebnei Adam mitzuyin bevatehem. So Rav Nachman ben Yitzchak gives us one first possible answer, because it's the time when people are found in their homes in the evening. During the day, they're out in the field, they're in the shuk, they're who knows where. Secondly, he says, Va'or haner yafeh lebedika. And the light of the, some want to say candle here, some want to say lamp here, is good for this search. Okay, so we basically, according to the Meforshim, have two reasons here, not combined, but two separate reasons why Badika should be done in the evening. Now, Amar Abaye now responds and clarifies. Hilkach hai tsurba mirabanan. Therefore, he says, if one is a student of the rabbis, or, right, preparing to learn, lo lepetach ba'idnei ba'orta tlesa denahage arba'asa. Okay, in other words, he shouldn't liftoach, he shouldn't begin learning particularly new material at his usual time in the evening. In other words, a night seder, so to speak, all right, on the evening of the 13th, Dinage Arbasa, while the light, in other words, okay, before it gets totally dark into the 14th, Dilma Mishcha Le Shema'ate. Why? Because it may be that he will become so involved, I'm going to say, in his learning, Va'ate le'emnuye mi mitzvah, and as a result, come to forget, minimize, put aside the opportunity to do the mitzvah of doing the bedika. Okay. Now, Gemara points out, Ba'umine mirav Nachman bar Yitzchak. So they asked, since he gave these two rationale examples of reasons, right? How about the following situation? You said people are home. Okay, does that mean in their own homes? What about if it's not your own home? If you're a renter? Gemara picks up. Ba'umine, so they asked him the following issue, Mirav Nachman bar Yitzchak. Hamaskir bayit lechavero ba'arba'a asar. One who rents, leases out a home to his colleague, to his neighbor on the 14th. Al mi livdok, whose obligation is it to do the bedika, to do the search? Al hamaskir livdok, is it on the renter to do the search? Okay. the chamira didehu, because it could be the chometz that belongs to the one who owns the house. Okay. Oh, dilma al hasocher livdok. Okay. So is it the one who now is renting? Is that his it? Or perhaps it's the one who, right, who rented it out to search. The isura birshute kai. Why? Because there, okay, the prohibition is in his domain. What is it? Tashma, says the Braita. Listen to the following. Hamaskir bayit lechavero, one who leases a house to his neighbor. Al hasocher la'asot lo mezuzah, on the one who is renting, okay, it is his responsibility to attach the mezuzah. So the Gemara continues with the Braita. Hatam, there in that case, ha'amav Rav Masharshia. Rav Masharshia commented, mezuzah chovat hadarhi, that the mezuzah is the obligation of the one living there. Okay, hachamai, but here in this case, whose is it? Amar laho Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, says he was responded to by Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak. Tanena, we learned this, okay, in another Braita. Hamaskir bayit lechavero, one who leases, rents a house to his neighbor. Im ad shelo masar lo maftechot chal arba'a asar. If until the time that he's given him the keys comes the 14th, al hamaskir levdok. It is the responsibility of the leasee, okay, to search. V'im mishemasar lo maftechot chal arba'a asar. But if he's handed over the keys to the renter, and then the 14th comes, al hasocher livdok. It is the obligation of the renter to do the search. Okay? Now, a further question, further problem, similar but slightly different. Baumi nemi Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak. Again, they asked Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak under the following circumstances, right? Hamaskir bayit lechavero ba'asar. Okay, one who rents his house on the 14th itself. Chezkato baduk. Is there a chazaka, an assumed status, right? Chazaka, an assumed status that the house has been bedikt, so to speak, baduk, that it's been examined, it's been searched, or ein chezkato baduk, or do we say that the assumed status of the house is that it's not been searched? Lamai nemer, okay, according to whom? Lamai nafkamina, right? According to what's the practical difference between them? Li shaile. So go ask him, says the Gemara. He's not around to be able to be asked, says the Gemara. La'atruche lahai mai. Okay, do we then impose on the renter to go through this? That's what our real question is. Amar laho Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, Tani tuha. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak says, indeed, we've learned this. Hakol ne'emanim al bi'ur chametz. All are to be trusted on the removal, I'm going to say, or the disposal of the chametz. Afilu nashim, even women. Afilu avadim, even servants. Afilu ktanim, even minors. Now remember, in all three of these cases, they are not usually acceptable witnesses. So why is it that in this case, we're saying that their, I'm going to put in quotes, testimony, okay, is considered valid about the status of the house? Mai tama mehimne, asks the Gemara. So what's the reason that they're believed? As we go over to the next Amud, right? Lav mishum dechezkato baduk. Isn't it, can it not only be that we have a presumed status that the house has been examined, has been searched? The kasavar, because we hold the perspective, hakol chaverim hem eitzel bedikat chametz, that all are considered in the status of chaverim. Okay, remember chaverim were those individuals who were very strict and trustworthy in regards to tithing and in regards to certain other practices. Okay, so they are all considered to be like the status of chaverim, trustworthy individuals when it comes to bedikat bayit for Pesach. Tanya. Why? Because we have a braita. Chaver shemet v'hiniach migura mule'a perot. If we have somebody who is considered a chaver and he died, and after the death we discover that he had a large storehouse full of produce, afilu hein b'nei yoman, even if that produce is fresh, that it's been there only a day, hare hein b'cheskat metukanin, they are considered in the presumed status of having been tithed, of having been made fit. Umimai, on what basis can we say this? Dilma shani hacha. Maybe it's different here. Mishum de ka'amre hane. Why? Because these here could have been the ones who say, Atu amira dahane mide mishisha eitbe. Since they are the ones who are saying, okay, is it possible, right, that we could say here that that they are, since it's the, I guess I want to phrase it, since they're the ones who are giving the statement that the house has been checked, okay? In other words, maybe it's fact that they saw it being checked, or that they were the ones themselves who did the checking. Elamai, okay? Even if we don't want to say that, Ela, what could it be? The cheskat baduk, that we make this chazaka, we take this assumption that the presumed status of a house has been checked. Hai hakol ne'amanim. Okay, but here we say they are all trustworthy. What do we mean? Kol habatim b'chezkat bedukin ba'arba'a asar mibayale. Really, what should have been said is that all houses are in the status of being presumed searched on the 14th. That's how it should have been phrased. Elamai mishum amira dahani. So on what basis do we say that it's because of what they said? Ha lo amrehani. Here, maybe they're not the ones who said it. Lo tifshot mine the ein chizkato baduk. Okay, if that's the case, okay, right? What is it that we say? Don't we have this assumption, so to speak? can't we learn from this, from here, that maybe it's not searched? Lo, no, says the Gemara. Le'olam emelach chezkato baduk. No, we would always say that under normal circumstances, usually, okay, I would say that the house is in a presumed status of having been searched. V'hacha b'mai eskina. What are we then talking about here? Okay, demuchzak lan delo badak. Okay, that maybe we should have a presumed status that it hasn't been searched. Ka'amre hane bedkine. And that what they are really saying is that they themselves were the ones who searched. That's why we can accept it. Mahu detema. So what are you then saying? Lo lehimnunhu rabbanan. Are you saying that the rabbis should not assume that that they shouldn't be believed? Kamash Malan comes to teach us. Kevan de bedikat chametz de rabbananhu. That since we say that the search for leaven, okay, is a rabbinic ordinance, the midoraita babitul ba'ama sagile, and that in essence, from the Torah, all we really require is bitul. In general, we don't need to actually have a search. If a person mentally, so to speak, puts it aside, that would seem to be sufficient. Sagile, that's enough. Himnuhu rabbanan bid'rabbanan. Therefore, the rabbis believe them in it being a rabbinic requirement, the badika. So that's the point. Okay. Now we right? Okay. Questions, anyone? Okay.
Has nothing to do with chazaka.
Right. That's right. In other words, the rabbis believe that in this case, if they say it was searched, either they themselves did it or they saw it being done. Okay. We now get to another issue, still dealing with this whole topic of rented facilities. Ibayalahu. So we ask another question and have another issue. Hamaskir bayit lechavero becheskat baduk. If one has rented a house from a neighbor on the presumed assumption that it has been searched, umatz'o she'eno baduk, but he discovers, right, what? That it has not been searched. Okay, mahu, what's the status? What's the law? Mihavi kemekach ta'ut. Do we say then that this is a inappropriate financial exchange? In other words, it's a false, I don't want to say bargain, but it's a false agreement, right? Olo or not? Tashma. Listen to the following braita. Says the Gemara. Da'amar Abaye. As Abaye says, Lo mebaye ba'atra delo yahiv agra ubadko. Abaye is telling us the following. Okay? We do not have a problem, he says, or we don't ask, okay, about this agreement in a place, delo yahave agra, where there has been no, agra is usually wage, but I want to say financial payment, ubadku, and that they searched. Denechale le'inish, the kiyume mitzvah begufe, because it's more, I want to say pleasant, appropriate for people to fulfill the mitzvah themselves. ela afilu ba'atra diyahave agra ubadku. But even in a place, explains Abaye, where they would make a financial payment and do the search, the necha le leinish the kiyume mitzvah b'mamone, that it is more suitable, appropriate for people to fulfill the mitzvah then with their own money. So even if the individual himself did not do the bedika, he would pay to have somebody else do the bedika to ensure that it got done if he was going to be renting that property. Okay? Think of the example of the fact that we have people here in the village who have additional apartments, and some of them will come down before the start of the, let's say, December, to make sure that their rental property is in good condition and ready for the tenant. Okay, so that's the kind of parallel we can draw for the moment. Okay. Now, what happens next? Tznan Hatam. We have a Mishnah that now teaches here the following. Rabbi Meir Omer, Ochlin kol chamesh, v'sorfin b'tchilat sheish. Okay, so we're really, in a sense, getting to, if you want to say, a new topic, the destruction of the chametz, the removal, total removal of the chametz. So Rabbi Meir is telling us, excuse me, that morning of the 14th, you have a certain amount of time which you're still available for eating chametz, ochlin kol chamesh, the first 5 hours of the day, v'sorfin b'tchilat sheish, and we have to burn it at the beginning of the 6th hour. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, ochlin kol arba, says Rabbi Yehuda, one can eat it until through the 4th hour. V'tolin kol chamesh, and you have to sort of leave it in limbo, I'll call it, hanging that 5th hour. V'sorfin b'tchilat sheish, and one burns it the beginning of the 6th hour. Gemara tells us the kuli alma miha chametz misheish sha'ot ulamala asur, that therefore everyone seems to be in agreement that from the start of the 6th hour it is forbidden. Minalan, how do we know this? Asks the Gemara. Now comes an answer. Amar Abaye, says Abaye, Trei Karai Kative. We have 2 verses. Okay? Tiv says one verse, Shivat Yamim Seor Lo Yimotzei Bevatechem. Okay, says the verse, for 7 days you shall not have leaven found in your homes. Uktiv, and then it's also written as well. Okay, Ach biyom harishon tashbitu seor mibatechem. Okay? The second pasuk, but, however, on the 1st day, right, you shall tashbitu, destroy, remove, eliminate any leaven in your homes. Ha ketzad, how is this to be reconciled? The 2 psukim. Lirabot arba'a asar lebior. Okay, to include the 14th itself as the occasion, I'm going to say, for the removal, the destruction. Gemara picks up. Ve'ema lerabot lelei chamisha asar lebiur. Maybe it tells us the following, that to include the night of the 15th for the destruction. Desalgadatach, because it's possible, right? You might have thought to say, Amina, Yamim Kativ, Yamim En, Leilot Lo. Okay, days yes, nights no. Kamashmalan comes to teach us Afilu Leilot, even the nights. Okay, that even the nights are prohibited. Okay, now we're going to just roll over a tiny bit. Hahu lo itztarichale. But maybe that verse is not needed to teach us that. Why? Daha itkish hashbatat soor la'achilat chametz. Why? Because we make a hekesh. We make an association, right, between the destruction of the leaven and the eating of chametz. Va'achilat chametz la'achilat matzah. And we make again a hekesh, another association between the eating of chametz, the prohibition, of course, of eating chametz, and the eating of matzah. Hashbatat soor la'achilat matzah, the destruction of the leaven and the eating, prohibition of eating chametz. Dichtiv, why? Because it's written, Shivat Yamim Soor Lo Yimatzeh Bevatechem. 7 days, right? You shouldn't find leaven in your homes. Ki kol ochel machmetzet v'nichreta. Right? Because all who eat leaven shall be cut off. They suffer karet. Va'achilat chametz la'achilat matzah. And the prohibition of eating chametz vis-a-vis the requirement to eat matzah, dichtiv kol machmetzet lo tochelu, right? Bechol moshvotechem tochlu matzah. Okay, all leaven you should not eat. In all your dwellings you shall eat matzah. Uktiv be b'matzah, and then it's written in regard to matzah, be'erev tochlu matzah. With in the evening, right? You shall eat matzah, right? So therefore, okay, that seems to tell us that that other verse is not needed in regards to the first night. All right? Va'ema, says the Gemara. And then I might say, okay, l'rabot leil yudaled labiur. Maybe we should include the night of the 14th for the occasion for disposal. Right? The Gemara tells us bayom kativ. It's written at daytime. Okay, and that's where we're going to stop. Okay, we're there for today, and tomorrow we'll pick up. Okay, with a question about that, and then some more details in terms of this issue of the destruction and further. Okay, so we'll, as I said, we'll stop there and wish everybody a good day. Stay
Thank you very
healthy,
much.
everybody.
Thank you, Rabbi. Have a great
Thank
day.
you. Have a good day.
Have a good day.
Good day, everyone.
Have a good day, Robert.
Take care.
Have a good day. Okay.